everybody, welcome to the Pins and Needles podcast. This is episode 54. My name is Zoe. You can find me everywhere, Instagram and Ravelry as Pins and Needles UK. I will leave links down below to everything, well, show notes and everything down below to everything that I talk about. I'll also include timestamps, so if you want to dot around to different sections, you are very welcome to do so. How have you been? How have you been? It's been ages. I'm sorry I've been away so long. I did Vlogmas, so daily videos all over the Christmas period, and I even did one Christmas Day. And I meant to get back to you before now, but life got in the way. But I've made it. I am back, and I'm going to try hard this year to try and stick to a proper 2-weekly schedule. Thank you very much. I've had a few nice, kind messages from people, just hoping that I'm okay, and hoping to see me back on YouTube soon. That was really kind. Thank you for thinking of me. I hope you haven't been worried. I'm not okay, but it's not a massive drama, and I'll tell you in a minute. I wanted to remind you all that the Knit Tea Retreat October 2020 booking goes live this coming Saturday at midday for newsletter subscribers. So for anyone that's new, me and my friend Jenny, who is Owl About Yarn, we run the Knit Tea Retreat, and these are, we hold 2 a year, but the next one is the workshop based retreat, which is in Cardiff at a lovely place called Insole Court. We have a fantastic range of tutors this year. I will put up on the screen where you can find us. We are at the Knit Tea Retreat on Instagram, and there's links down below to our Ravelry group and our website. But we have a brilliant range of tutors. We have got Mina, the knitting expat. She is teaching a couple of workshops for us, drop spindling and pattern hacking. We have got Sylvia, who is with Cherries on Top 2, and she is doing a cast-ons and bind-off class, and also some intarsia. I'm sure you've seen, if you're on Instagram, her beautiful Nubian Queen sweater design, and then a new cardigan. I don't know if she's bringing it out as a design, but it's like an African village scene on a cardigan, and she wore it to Vogue Knitting Live in New York, and it was fabulous. So yeah, that's Sylvia Watts Cherry, who is with knitting with Cherries on Top 2. We've also got Carrie Westerman. She is at Carrie Bookish on Instagram. I'm sure you've heard of her. Very well-known pattern designer, and one of her most popular releases was her book, This Thing of Paper. So she's coming to do Knit the Landscape, and also twisted stitches and mock cables, so that'll be fun. And possibly the one I'm most excited about, we found a Welsh photography, well, he's a tutor and he is also a professional photographer, called Matthew Brown, and we've had a couple of requests for a photography workshop, so learning how to photograph your knits and yourself whilst wearing them. So we got in touch with Matthew, and he has designed a fabulous workshop for us. It's suitable for smartphones and DSLR, and it will cover basics like lighting, understanding your settings, framing, things like that. So that's the fourth tutor that we'll be having. Hopefully I will have remembered to put pictures of people up in this handy space, which is why I'm sat to the side. Yes, so if you're interested in coming, this does sell out super fast, so please make sure you are signed up to our newsletter. There is a link down below for you to get signed up. And the way it works for booking is at midday on Saturday the 15th, we send an email out to you, and in that email is a clicky link that will take you to the booking form on our website. If any tickets are left over by midday on the Sunday the 16th, the form becomes available to everybody online on the website. So do have a click through to the website, have a look, and don't forget to put it in your diary so you don't miss out. On that same vein, we do have an ongoing make-along for the retreat. It's open to anybody. You don't have to be coming to any of our retreats. Any craft counts, and all you have to do is loosely tie it in to one of the retreats. So it could be a pattern by a tutor, it could be from yarn you bought at the retreat marketplace, it could be that something in the pattern title makes you think of Cardiff. I mean, basically it's a flimsy excuse for all of us to knit something and get to know each other. That all takes place in our Ravelry group, which also is listed down below. Okay. As I mentioned, there are timestamps down below, so if you're not interested in why I haven't been here, by all means skip it. Nobody needs to care, it's quite all right. And if you'd rather not, and if you'd rather just get to the nitty stuff, by all means check out the timestamps down below and you can skip the whole thing. I didn't mention it during my Vlogmas videos because everything was still a bit up in the air. But it turns out I have got seropositive, erosive rheumatoid arthritis, which is a bit of a mouthful. Basically, it's rheumatoid arthritis, and that is an autoimmune condition where your body starts attacking itself, and particularly the linings of your joints. I'm sure you know what arthritis symptoms are, lots of pain and stiffness and swelling and things like that. I'd started having small symptoms probably late summer, early autumn, thinking about it, because hindsight is a wonderful thing. But it very quickly got worse, and it made me realise it wasn't just that I'd caught my knuckle on something. I run a gym and I'm a personal trainer along with my husband, so I'm constantly covered in unexplained bruises and random achy bits and things, so it took me a while to twig it wasn't just that. So I headed to my GP, my family doctor, who ran some blood tests, which showed that there was definitely something up, but he wouldn't give me a diagnosis. And I was referred to the rheumatology department at our local hospital. And when I had the letter through confirming that I was on the waiting list, I was already bad enough that it was seriously affecting my work and my daily life, and it was really quite bad. In terms of, I love the NHS, I really do. It's one of the best things about the UK, but it is far from perfect, and it's very rarely the actual health practitioners that are the problem. Every one of those that I've met, whether it's a GP or nursing staff, they've always been fabulous. It's just getting to see them that's the issue. I rang the hospital to just see where I was on the list, because the GP marked me as urgent because I'm only 40, and because of my work, it would be painful enough if I were an office worker, but as a personal trainer, I'm needing to unload 120 kilos of weights several times a day and things like that. I rang the hospital to find out about the waiting list, and the answer is that the urgent list that I was on was 37 weeks. And I was only week 4 into my wait, which would have meant sort of autumn of this year before I got to see anybody or have any sort of treatment. And by that point, you have good days and bad days with arthritis, and different parts of you are worse than other parts on different days. But I was really quite severely disabled with it. There were days when Dave had to get me dressed and help me get on and off the toilet. My children had to help me up out of chairs. I couldn't, I mean, I'm doing it now, but I couldn't hold a full cup of tea. Just the weight and the pain, and I couldn't bend my hands around it. Driving was an issue. I couldn't sleep because it was also in my shoulders as well as my wrists and my hands. I couldn't manoeuvre myself in bed, so there was lots of broken sleep, and it was really quite rotten actually. So the thought of a 37-week wait was a bit soul destroying, really. I went back to the GP, who basically said, I'm very sorry, but it is what it is. It's only 37 weeks. It's 37 weeks, there's nothing I can do. And at that point, I had not yet had a diagnosis, because although I'd had some blood tests done that showed stuff, as a GP and not a consultant, he wasn't allowed to diagnose me, which is fine. He knew what it was, but he couldn't say. And in the end, I went to see a private consultant in Cardiff. Dave came along with me, and the chap was very nice, and he was the one that gave me that diagnosis: seropositive erosive rheumatoid arthritis. And I've got raging arthritis. It's not just a bit, it's like my blood test results are off the charts. And he's started me off on some steroid tablets, which are just symptom control, and also a different set of tablets that might actually control the arthritis itself, but it's highly unlikely. Only 30% of people have a positive reaction to those sorts of tablets. But it was something, and the steroids are amazing, and I am not back to my normal self, but I am so much better than I was. So that's why I've not been around. Because we're self-employed and we can't not work, and we can take, I can not go into work, but then it costs me for someone else to cover my shift. So I had to keep going as much as I could, and just getting through shifts and getting through the day with the kids was about all I could manage. And there was a lot of days when I couldn't knit, but I think holding my knitting counts. Proximity knitting, I like to think of it. It was certainly comforting, if not actually producing anything very much. And then I had better days when I could knit. Yeah, that's why I've not been around. I've not been much fun, personally. Although by the time I collected everything on my table, I've got a reasonable amount of stuff to show you. It's just been a bit crap, basically, and I've not been much company, and I've needed all my energy for other things. At the moment, I am being referred back to the NHS because the next round of pointless tablets they want me to try that also probably won't work need to be through the NHS for various reasons. And I am hopeful that by summer/autumn, I will have found some sort of treatment plan that will actually work. Although it's not nice having rheumatoid arthritis, it is actually treatable. Obviously it varies from person to person, but there is a good chance that when eventually they get me on the correct medication and get the correct dosage, that my symptoms will be drastically improved. And although I might well need to stay on that medication for life, I should be back to pretty much my old self. That's the hope. There's no guarantee. But for now, I am enjoying being able to wiggle my fingers and do up my own trousers. That's always a treat. So that's it. That's the long version of why I've not been around. But yeah, back in the game, and thought I'd get you caught up on the knitting. So should we just get on with some knitting talk? I think that's probably best. I'm sat in my dining room today. I'm in front of a different fireplace to usual, partly because the weather is lush. It's been hideous in the UK. We've had Storm Ciara, which has just been like the end of days, unbelievably high winds and loads of rain and hail. But today is nice. It's just brisk winds and sunshine. And also, Jenny and I went on a wool run the other day, and we picked up our next batch of Cartref yarn, and that's still in my front room. So to get into the front room, you actually have to turn sideways and sort of shimmy past all of these bags of yarn. But let's get on with some finished objects, because I do actually have some. First up, I've been knitting these for ages. these are my dad's Christmas socks, and it's now February and he still hasn't had them, but they are finished. I've shown these before on the podcast. There you are, look. This is, what pattern is this? The Porthos socks by Caoua Coffee in Regia 4-ply in the colourway 00522. Yeah, just a nice Regia yarn. My dad has pretty honking great big feet, so although it's a knit and purl pattern which does eat up rather a lot of yarn, I've only got a tiny little nubbin left. And I always make sure that when I give my dad some socks, my mum has a little bit of the yarn extra so that she can darn any holes that turn up. And he's been ever so patient waiting for me. But when my hands were bad, knitting with smaller needles was difficult, if not impossible, or I could only do a few rounds at a time. So I knew at the beginning of December Dad wasn't going to get these for Christmas, but he was very kind and said he didn't mind. But I got there eventually, and now I just need to make it to the post office to send them off to him. So that's done, which is good. I mustn't lose that because Mum will need it for darning. The other finished object, I can't show you because I've given them away. Some friends of mine all got together and we went away this weekend just gone. There was no Edinburgh Yarn Festival this year, and rather than sulking about it and not getting together, someone had the bright idea of booking a house, so we had our own little retreat, and I'll talk more about that next time. But we decided that we would knit everyone would knit someone else in the group a pair of socks, so like a Secret Santa but for socks. So I dug out my copy of Coopknits socks, I've had this for a while, and some lovely sparkly red owlabout yarn in the colourway Cranberry Fizz, and I drew Ruth in the Secret Sock Swap, and I knitted up a pair of Pennycress socks. Now I'll put a picture up here, but it's not a terribly good picture, and it's hard to show you these without giving away the pattern. The one with the biggest picture of the socks are blurry and the dress is in focus. I'll try and sidle it in from the edge so you don't see the charts. Is that going to focus? There you go. Pennycress socks. Just a nice wavy lacy pattern. And they were my Christmas... Oh, I'm fuzzy now. There we go. They were my Christmas Eve cast on socks. And they needed to be finished by last weekend. And I made it in time, but it wasn't easy. I worked out how many pattern repeats I needed to do for the foot and the leg and divided that by the number of days and tried to stick to it. And there were days when I didn't manage anything. But anyway, they got done eventually, and Ruth loves them and says they fit, so that's good. I think I've finished with this book now. I think I've knitted everything I want to, so I will probably put that into the retreat bring and take table. So if you're coming to the retreat and you fancy this book, have a dig through. Next up is a test knit. The same Ruth that I knit the socks for came up with her very first ever design, and I offered to test knit it for her. So here is the Lancashire Winter Hat by Ruth Buchanan, although no, she's Ruth Alice on Ravelry, and this is a pattern of her very own design, and I test this out of some handspun. So the cream is undyed Polwarth, which I bought from John Arbon and spun up on my traditional spinning wheel. And that lovely heathered purple is also John Arbon, and that was spun by Jenny and given to me as a present a while ago. Yes, it is from their Harvest Hues range in the colourway Thistle, and it's 65% merino and 35% zwartbles. Goodness me, I'm out of practice. There we go. So there's purple and grey shades in it. And it's the first time in a long time I have knit with handspun. Goodness me, they're attached. So yeah, Jenny, there we go. Jenny spun the purple, I spun the cream, the Polwarth, and they were close enough in weight for me to knit the hat up. It is now live on Ravelry. I can't remember exactly how much. I want to say about £4 or £4.50. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I particularly like the decreases on the top. I think that's rather smart. And I've been wearing this lots. Like I said, Storm Ciara has been battering us, and with a double layer, it's really good. So again, that was another deadline knit. But when you say you're going to do something, you're going to do something. And because that was knit on larger needles than the socks, there were days when I couldn't knit socks, but I could cope with that. So it was a nice project to swap around. I've had to change my knitting style a little bit. Previously, I just ran the working yarn up the palm of my hand and just lightly curled my fingers around it so the yarn would come out here. But this motion can be very difficult, and I had to look up on YouTube how to tension your yarn, because nearly everybody else that I know wraps the yarn in some way around their fingers or around the back of their hand, and I've never been able to do it and get the tension right. Either it was too tight and the yarn wouldn't move through my hands, or it would be so loose it looked really sloppy on the needles. But necessity being the mother of all invention, I worked it out, and now I can wrap the yarn around my fingers, which enables me to keep my hands far more open. I'm a thrower, so I have the needle sat across the crook of my thumb like a pencil, and by tensioning the yarn in this new way, I can keep my hands far more open and they don't have to be as clenched. That's been much easier. And it doesn't seem to have affected my my tension on my work, my stitches per inch or anything. So that's quite good. What else? Oh yes, if you were watching along for my 12 cast-ons of Christmas, although I didn't do 12, the hat was one of them, the socks was one of them, but I couldn't show you those obviously because I was secret. But another one was my woven cable headband. Now this is a free pattern by Priscillia Uloho. I think that's how you pronounce it. I knitted it in Rowan felted tweed in the colourway 731, and it's Rowan felted tweed Aran. I've never knit with this yarn before, but I love it. I bought it from Angela at Yarn and Yarns. The pattern said it was you only needed 50 grams of yarn, but I've got a slightly larger head than the pattern called for, so I bought 2 balls. Well, no, I didn't. I bought 1 ball and then had to have an argument with Angela because she was trying to give me the second ball for free, and unfortunately she won. Curse you. Thank you, Angela. And as it turns out, I needed slightly more than 1. I put the modifications on my project page. I knit it a little longer than called for because I have a slightly larger head, and I just needed to break into the second ball for the last row and the bind off and to seam it, because this is knit flat and then seamed. I also went down a needle size because where I live is right on the coast in South Wales and it does get very windy. But yeah, I love it. Really nice and handy. I did a pretty tidy job of the seam. Can you see that in there? And I've worn it lots. It's nice just to keep the wind out of your ears, but it's not actually cold. So that was another finish. Again, there were times when this was perfect to work on because it's on 4.5mm needles, and there were times when I couldn't work on it because working the cables was very hard on my hands. But again, I persevered and I got there. I think that's all for finished objects. So let's scoot on to works in progress. First up, we have socks for my daughter Jocelyn, and this is in my Harry Potter sock sack, which is by Tracy of Thimble and Thread Make, and it's perfect. It's I don't know if it's lined at all. Oh, well, it hasn't got interfacing rather, and this tends to be what I take my knitting to work in because the bag scrunches up rather nicely. Jocelyn wanted a pair of socks, and she has done for ages, but I refused to knit her socks until her feet have stopped growing. But she swears up and down now that they haven't grown for ages, which meant I relented and cast on some socks. This is how far I've got. Well, actually not quite. I had got halfway down the foot of the first sock when I got her to try them on, and they fit fine in terms of circumference, but I'd put in a Fish Lips Kiss heel. I don't know why. Why do I ever knit anything apart from a heel flap and gusset? It never works out. Turns out she's got the same really high instep as her father, so she could get them on, but nothing was in the right place. It was really stretched. So I ripped it back to the leg, and I'm just doing my standard heel flap and gusset, and I'm just at the point of picking up the stitches for the gusset. This is a sock out of my own brain. It's not one I'm planning on publishing. It's just a vanilla sock, and then I've added in a little strip of garter just for fun. The yarn is lovely. I gave her several options from my stash, and this is the yarn that she picked, and it's Opal from the Claude Monet range. What's the colourway? I wrote it down. 9862 in the Nymph colourway, and each of these yarns is based on one of his paintings. So if you have a look at the stocking stitch side of the sock, and can you see the little picture there? Is that in focus? Hopefully you can see the colour inspiration. So I'm bumbling along nicely on these. I take them to work, although I never knit on them at work. And as a family, we've recently started playing Dungeons and Dragons. I usually only get to do it once a week because either Dave or I work every evening. But they're perfect for that, so we're knitting along on those as well. My other work in progress has been my Boxy. That's a pattern by Joji Locatelli, and I'm knitting the 4-ply weight one. And very lovely Mars, who is a Brownberry, very kindly sent me the pattern. So that's fabulous. And Jenny gave me the yarn to knit the jumper in, so that makes it doubly fabulous. And when I started getting unwell with the arthritis, I'm always worse in the morning, so when I wake up I'm at my worst and I sort of ease off during the day. And what I found was, after about an hour, a little bit of knitting on my Boxy, because although it's 4-ply, it's a larger needle size. It's 3, how am I knitting it on? 3.5mm needles, there you are, so not too small. Once I'd sussed out tensioning my yarn around my fingers, actually forcing myself to do some knitting on my Boxy helped ease my hands and just get them going a bit. It kind of became my physiotherapy knitting. And because it's huge amounts of stocking stitch, if I was exhausted and if I was miserable and if I just couldn't cope with very much, I could just sit there and go round and round and round forever, and it was deeply soothing to me. It also gave me lots of practice with this new yarn tensioning technique, because I thought, well, do you know what, if I end up 1 stitch an inch difference on an oversized stocking stitch in Tweedy yarn jumper, nobody's going to know. But actually, having done a few inches in the new technique, I measured new technique tension and old technique tension, and it was near as damn it the same, so that was a relief. Okay, I'm sure you've all seen it before, but that's the pattern. Boxy by Joji Locatelli. I'm knitting, I think, the 4th size for the body. I might have to go up to the 5th size for the arms. And I didn't get exact gauge, but as I said, it's not so important for the body at least. And I didn't want it quite as vast as the pattern intended, for my size, I think the finished circumference should be something crazy like 68 inches. 68 inches, when my full bust, I think, is 42, 2. But my jumper circumference is working out at about 60 inches, so only about 20 inches of positive ease. And this morning for my therapy knitting, I finished one of the, I think the right shoulder. Okay, it's at that awkward stage. Okay, so this is some of Jenny's yarn. It is Owl About Yarn, Tweed Owl, in the colourway purple. I don't think she currently has any of this colour in stock, and I am not sure if she will be continuing with this base. But yeah, always worth a look. I absolutely love it. I just thought for showing off this yarn, it really is the best pattern. This is the, hang on a sec, needles. So I've bound off for the neckline at the top, and this morning I finished the right shoulder. So you can see there's some sort of garter ridges in there. And you do shoulder, short row, goodness that's difficult to say, short row shaping for the shoulders. Her pattern has you do wrap and turn, but classic wrap and turn I'm not very good at. I make a real pig's ear of it. When picking up the wraps it looks awful. So I looked up the German short row technique. I used a Pearl Soho tutorial. And I think it looks kind of okay. If you get really close up, you can see it very slightly. But I mean, if you wouldn't know, you wouldn't know. Yeah, I'm rather pleased with it. I'm really looking forward to wearing it. I think it's going to be perfect for spring and summer. And it's a big drop shoulder sweater. So this here is already halfway down my bicep. So once I've finished the back, you knit 3 needle bind off for the shoulders, and then you just pick up and knit only about 6 inches of sleeve. But I've really enjoyed working on this. It's been with me in a lot of very dark mornings, both literally and figuratively. There were quite a lot of days when I was up at 3:30 in the morning because I just couldn't sleep. I was just in so much pain. And so I'd either come down, and if I could knit on it. And if I couldn't, it just sat on my lap while I watched Call the Midwife. So yeah, I'm hoping to get the other side of the front done today. And then I can get a crack on with the back. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I look forward to being able to wear it at yarn shows later this year. Jenny and I have got plans to sell at yarn shows, and it's always nice to have something made out of her yarn to wear on the stand. I do also need to, we both of us need to knit ourselves a jumper out of Cartref DK. Up until this point, we haven't felt like we've had enough stock to be able to take some out of the shop for ourselves. But like I said, my front room is literally blocked with Cartref Yarn, so I think we can probably risk it. On to acquisitions. I've got a lot. One of the reasons it took me a while to get back to podcasting is I was just starting to get overwhelmed because I've had Christmas presents and the remains of the Advent calendar, and I was just starting to panic that I couldn't fit it all in, and what if I forgot something that someone had given to me, and then they got upset, and I just thought, just get a grip. So I've got some things to show you, but not everything, and I will squish those into following episodes. First up, I had my Knit Crate delivery. Knit Crate is a company that does a subscription box scheme. As a disclaimer, I am part of their ambassador program, and that means that they send me this yarn for free in return for me talking about it on my podcast and showing it on Instagram. My opinions are my own. This is an affiliate scheme, so if you have a look in the box down below, you'll find a link, and that's my personal link where you can sign up to the subscription boxes. It is an affiliate scheme, the details of which are down below. So I will financially benefit, but so will you, but just to make absolutely clear. Anyway, I'm signed up. There's a sock crate, which is obviously sock weight yarn, and then there's the knit crate, which is the one that I've got. And this is January's box, and look at that. Absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. It's so squishy. I've got 2 skeins, and it is Knitology worsted, 100% superwash merino worsted weight. And this particular month's was done in conjunction with Brooklyn Boy Knits, who I hadn't heard of before. But yeah, male knitter, obviously based in Brooklyn. I went and found him on Instagram, so it's good to have some more knitting chaps in my feed. And so he worked with Knit Crate to come up with these colourways. This one is Empire, so it's a tonal blue that my husband has already claimed. He doesn't get cold very often, but he does like a hat, so I shall probably knit this up for him. And then this one is Royal Court, so that is a far more variegated skein, and I'm wondering if that might have to be mittens. But yeah, really squishy, absolutely lovely yarn. It does also come with a pattern booklet, so whatever yarn you get in your box, there's matching patterns in their magazine. And I have to say, I'm rather pleased to see that there's a woman of colour as their model. I'm a supporter of BIPOC in fibre, and so is the Knit Tea Retreat as a business. We have policies in place to ensure that everyone is safe and welcome at our events. So I'm always pleased to see representation on the increase, and yeah, I just like to shout about it when I see people doing positive things. So the magazine covers both weights of the yarn. Oh look, there's the chap. Louis Borrier, Brooklyn Boy Knits. There he is, look. And there's some, yeah, it's nice to get the patterns to go with the yarn. There's a nice cowl pattern, and they always have a mixture of knit as well as crochet, which is great if you crochet, which I don't. So yes, that came through. I was really pleased with that. I meant to cast some of it on because it's thicker weight. Again, really nice and easy for my hands to cope with. I had cast on with their silk blend that they sent me the previous month, but it was on metal needles and it was just too hard on my hands, so I need to swap those over. And it usually comes with a free gift, and for some reason they sent me a tiny hat. I don't know what to do with the tiny hat. Tiny hat. So that's Knit Crate. Oh, the next thing I wanted to show you is a Christmas present. My mum is a knitter, and she's been getting back into knitting after a bit of a hiatus, and she knit me Christmas presents. And as a knitter, not many people knit you things, and it's just such a treat. She made me some fingerless mitts, which are in my coat pocket hanging up because they go with me everywhere. But she also made me this beautiful shawl, and it has tassels. I absolutely love it. So I kind of just fling it around myself, however it goes. And it just bundles up beautifully, and it's a little bit sparkly. Can you see? And I had to double check the yarn. Let's have a look. Right, so in the UK, we've got a big box craft store called Hobbycraft, and they have their own range of yarn, and that is called Knitcraft. So this is Knitcraft Shawl We Dance yarn in the greens colourway. You get 150 grams for £3.50, so it's fabulous value. And the pattern for this sort of alternating garter and stocking stitch shawl is on the inside of the ball band, which is great. So for £3.50 you get everything you need. And the yarn is, I think it's about 70% acrylic, and the rest is wool and a bit of alpaca in there as well. Yeah, it's supposed to have tassels all the way along, all the way down the pointy edge, which apparently Mum did and decided that was too tassely and took them all off apart from the 3 at the points, which I think was definitely the best decision. Yeah, so I've been wearing this lots. It just bunches up beautifully around my neck. And I think Mum enjoyed knitting it as well, and she's bought a couple more balls. So maybe her friends will get one too. So that was a lovely present, and I've really been enjoying wearing it. I think I showed this at the end of the last Vlogmas episode, but only as a picture, and I felt it deserved a proper show. So I did an advent calendar swap in the thread I live in on Ravelry, and my Christmas Day parcel contained the most beautiful project bag. It's like oil slick effect, and this is shiny gold with nice lilac ribbon and a purple spotty inside. And that's again, it's a really nice light one, so it'll sort of squish down in my work bag. I find once you've got drawstring bags, you use them for all sorts of things. So I've got project bags that have projects in, and I've got project bags that have charging cables in, and you know, bits and pieces like that. So I'm always pleased to get these. So she made this herself, and she also slipped in a pattern for me because I do sew, although not much at the moment. And that's a simple sew pattern, the Sienna dress. That made for a very nice Christmas Day parcel. And as well as the mitts that I haven't shown you and this lovely scarf, my mum also made me a project bag. Look, it's a Christmas project bag. Isn't that lovely? I think she had a bit of a Christmas knitting do as well with her group that she goes to back home in Stratford on Avon. So I think she whipped up a few of these, and I got one and she got one. And yeah, they got Christmas robins on and a nice purple ribbon. Oh, look, there was the label for the yarn. I was looking for that. I thought I would have kept it. That's the yarn that the shawl's knit out of. Knitcraft Shawl We Dance. Yeah, and then the pattern for the shawl is on the back. Garter stitch fringed shawl. Yeah, just knit on using 4mm needles. Yeah, shawl be done. Oh look, and there's a picture, you see? That's a few too many tassels. My mother knows me well. Yeah, so more Christmas presents plus my scarf. Like I said, I have got other stuff. So if you sent me stuff or you gave me stuff, I'm sorry I haven't shown it. I'm just getting a bit overwhelmed, and I was getting myself in a lather about recording this and talking to you all about everything. I just had to get on with it. So everything is safe, and I will try and show it next time. And that's kind of it. I feel like I haven't been terribly dynamic or exciting this time. But I just had to get back on and record something. We have got yarn in the shop. I just grabbed a random bunch of Cartref Yarn. This is our dry colourway, which is Dragon. And there's a link to our Etsy shop down below. Please don't forget about the Knit Tea Retreat newsletter sign up, and booking goes live on Saturday the 15th at midday. And I think that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I will try and keep in a rhythm and do some more recording this year. I hope that you have had lots of crafting time yourself, and that the weather isn't too blustery wherever you are. And with a bit of luck, I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. I'd say fingers crossed, but it's still a bit sore. Anyway, look after yourselves, and I will see you soon. Bye.